Hey guys, thanks for being here on this 2 weeks before Christmas edition of Training Days. So glad to have you all. We are gonna go through a couple different things today that should make life a little bit easier for you all as you're going through your. Our goal is to make life easier for you every single week by using AI tools so that you can go out and work with people again and not feel like you're stuck behind computers just making content, making content. And we all know that content is very necessary now when you're trying to get the word out in different ways on social media and websites. It's not a bad thing to have to make it, but it can be a very time consuming thing. And we want to find ways consistently to make that just easier for you. And so about every third or fourth training days, we work through a workflow, honestly, just a way for you to see that you can do this, you can do this, you can do this, where we want you to start to realize, oh, wow. Because one of the things that we've noticed when we're doing training days with people or that we're just doing demos or Josh or I are on a call with somebody, it's not that people didn't realize it can do that. It's that they didn't realize that they could even think to ask it to do that. And so a lot of times when we go through these workflows, it's just meant for you all to look at it and go, oh, it never even dawned on me that we might try that or we might try that. That's a big win for us. So today we're going to do that. But before we go into that process, where we're going to start with a sermon idea and then show you how we can add more content to that sermon idea, and then how we would refine that down, and then how we would make content out of that, like small group guides and things like that. So an entire workflow where you would see coming from a general idea of a sermon and how we're going to start a teaching all the way to the end in different ways. And we're not going to hit every tool, just so you know, because there's just too many tools in there. But we're going to give you a couple that you can see and kind of mess around with, and then we'll let that develop itself out. Before we do that, Josh, one thing I wanted to talk about or have you talk about actually is we very often when Sarah's on here, I'll ask her, hey, have you noticed any kind of constant or like more natural like things that are coming up on the chat, things people are bumping up against, and it seems like we are having some clip stuff lately. So I want to just talk a little bit about really I just wanted you to let people know that we are aware and that fix is in for us to kind of get that cleaned up.
Yeah, so there are clips are a thing that we absolutely are committed on and are working really hard to make a very, very easy part of your workflow. That said, they are a very complicated thing. Even with our partner, they're experiencing some issues lately. The YouTube issues that we've had in the past, we've got predominantly resolved at this point. And so that's a really good thing. But there are some times when just things are changed, quite frankly, across all, like clips when you're looking at the actual functionality of everything that is happening when you take a sermon and process clips from it. No matter if you're using us or if you were using Opus or you were using any of the other clip generation tools out there, there's a host of services that are being utilized across all of those. And so there's just a lot of opportunity for things to break. And so we've had some of that, and we're working really hard on that front. Some of that honestly has been on just our partnership sides of things. Of they've had some issues as well, and so we really appreciate you bearing with us on that front. Sarah, who leads our customer success team, is really, really attentive on that front, and we work really hard. If you ever run into problems on that front, we just want you to know that customer success channel, like if you click the little chat button on the bottom right hand side of the platform, we're going to respond to you. If you run into an issue, please let us know. We want to know. We're constantly improving the platform. We're in the midst of a whole bunch of upgrades to the platform across the board, and you're going to see some new clip functionality coming out here soon that we're really excited about, alongside of V2 coming out. And so there's just a whole host of things that we've been doing to improve the platform. So we appreciate you being patient with us on that front. We're headed into 2025 is going to be a season of stability for our platform. In the first 3 months, you're going to see a lot more platform stability as we roll out V2. We've built in a lot of new infrastructure that's going to really, really benefit everybody on the platform. So yeah, thanks for hanging in there with us. Please let us know if something doesn't happen the way that it should. We're trying to make it really easy for you even to identify, oh, here's what went wrong, and fix it if it's something on your end. Like we've had an issue where if you didn't actually have a I think this is one of the things Don is actually alluding to. They wanted me to talk about, and not going a long diatribe here. If you didn't have a file extension on the end of your video, like if you export it, but it doesn't actually put .mov or .mp4 on the end of the video, and then you go to upload it, our platform doesn't know what to do with that. And so we've added like an analyzer that we're testing right now that will effectively say, hey, here's what's wrong. Like we need a file extension added to this. So is this an MP4? Is it a .mov? Because we have to run different processes to actually process that clip depending on the type of file it is. So anyhow, sorry,
Yeah.
that was probably more technical than Don wanted me to get, but
No worries. More data is always better. I think the bottom line of it is that know that that little green bubble in the bottom right-hand corner, when you click on that and you type, "We've got a problem," you will get a chat bot at first. Because if there's a library of issues that come in and say, "Hey, if it's seen that before, it will give you an answer for that." At the same time, if that doesn't help, you can say, "Talk to a person," and you will get a person. You'll get Sarah, you'll get Josh, you'll get myself at times. We all try to be in there. We've got just all kinds of people that is their role. They're there to help you get those things done. And so just know when you've got questions, you've got a problem, I don't know how to do this, totally fine. That's what we're there for, and we want to do that. I wanted to give you a little bit of an update on a cool thing that happened. We released in the last training days, we released some Christmas ministry tools. There's a whole section of our platform. And Josh, if you don't mind, while I'm talking, if you'll pull that up, there's a whole section of our platform that called ministry tools. And really the best way to describe them are when Josh, myself, a couple of people on the team are just thinking about what would help a pastor today? What would help somebody? What would help them in this and this and this? Kind of one-off things that we can do that are not necessarily sermon dependent. We just come up with a ministry tool for it and we just make it up. So about 4 weeks ago, we launched Christmas ministry tools, and we were just thinking through, hey, what are some things that would help the average Christmas Eve service that just needs some ideas on things to do? And so we came up with an idea of like, what's another way that you can tell the Christmas story? We're just kind of running out of things, right? Like, what if I've been doing this for 29 years? There's only so many metaphors you can use for what happened to Christmas. So give me some ideas. So there's a Christmas sermon idea generator. There's always with that, one of the things that we baked into that was an object lesson. So if I'm going to talk about this topic, what would an object lesson be that would come alongside that? Because we know very often Christmas Eve services have kids involved in it. So how do we keep their attention? Well, then we also said, all right, well, let's take it further. What if we had that idea? What if we just did a whole kids section area where we said, help me develop out that 10-minute section of my Christmas services that were for kids. And so we did that. And then we said, we always want stories of life change. So what if we came up with interview videos that would come along with that? Well, the cool part for us was as we were doing these, and we launched them, the Christmas interview video wins 166 times that's been used in the last 3 weeks. So that's pretty awesome. We're pretty excited about that. And the Christmas idea, the sermon idea generator was 141. So that's pretty cool too, as of right now. So those are there. Just go on there and hit up your ministry tools and just look, there's things all across the board. If you're sermon prepping and you're trying to find a Greek word study or a Hebrew word study, you can just type in that word there and you can get an entire exhaustive breakdown on what the word justified means in Romans 5 when Paul uses it, or different things like that. You can just do that, and in no time you'll get all the data that you need for that. There's things if you want to announce something on that's coming up in church and you just don't know how else to say it, right? Sometimes we have an announcement we got to make in church and we've made it before, and I don't know how to make this exciting again. No problem. There's an announcement generator that has been used thousands of times. Like that's a big one that people use. But like just put in the event, put in the date of the event, put in some different details, and then it'll spit out stuff for you. And so I want you to spend some time this week, if you're just thinking through it, just go through all of these ministry tools and just know we're consistently thinking about that. And we typically think across 5 different style or like roles in the church. So there's a teaching role, a discipleship role, a communications role, a children's role, and then an overall operations role. And so we're going to do our very best consistently to develop out tools for everybody in your church that would fill one of those spots. And that doesn't have to be a paid staff member. That can be a volunteer. We want that to be volunteers. If you have a membership to Church.tech, we are all for you inviting more people on your account. Doesn't cost you any more money to invite more people on the account and invite and bring them in. And they don't have to be paid staff to do that. It can be anybody. Just send them an email and invite them on. And then find ways to give them responsibilities and ownership in what happens in your church so that they can feel like this is a part of who they are and they're able to use this as well. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's
I just want to show you how to do that, just because we have people all the time who tell us, oh, I had no idea this was true. And like, so hopefully everybody here already knows, but if you go to settings and then you go to organization and then click on members and then just click invite members, you can invite as many people to this as you want to invite. Like there's no limit on how many people you have. So if you have a staff, get every single one of them on here, and then set them as admin. Again, I've said this before, this menu here is going to change when we roll out V2. You'll be able to set all kinds of different roles and permissions and everything. But to start with, set them as admin. That allows them to actually interact in the platform, upload content, generate content. If they're members, they're basically just viewers. So anyhow, just a quick word on that front.
very, very helpful. Awesome. Yeah. So, okay, here's what I want to do first. And I am on the road this week, and so I have one window instead of three. So I'm trying to get all these things taken care of while I'm sharing my screen. But what I'd like to do first is go over a document that I've shown quite a bit called the 9-day work week. Okay. And the 9-day work week is kind of how our brain works when it comes to thinking about ministry. So I'm going to pull that up really quickly and just walk you through it really quickly. And then we're going to model this in real time. Josh is going to take some of it. I'm going to take some of it and just show you how you can utilize this. So if everybody sees this document right here, the idea of this document is it's meant to show you that we see ministry in this context in about a 9-day window. It's really kind of 10, but Saturday and Sunday we add as one day. And so picture it being Monday. This is the start of your week. And on that Monday, you have a general idea of what you want to talk about this next coming Sunday. Okay. And so, but you don't, I mean, you don't have it all worked out yet. You don't have much of your outline. It's like a skeleton, right? So we've got some content there. From that point, you can upload that, and we're going to do this in a minute. You can upload that onto the platform and use tools inside the platform to add meat to those bones and give you more content on what you want to teach. You can do, like I said, you can do a New Testament word study. You can do an Old Testament word study. You can brainstorm some main points that you want to teach about that. Hey, I want to talk about this topic. How would I get there? And it can give you some general ideas on how to do that. What I consistently say about Church.tech is it's meant to be a seat at the creative table. It does not do the job for you, and it's not intended to do the job for you. But it is intended to give you some ideas that may not be the best idea that you have that day, but they may be the thing that bring you to the best idea you have that day. Because very often in creative meetings, when you're thinking about something, the first idea isn't the best idea. But if I hadn't had that idea, then the next idea would have never come, right? So we want to utilize these things as ways to develop out our message. So we got the skeleton we're going to add to it. We're going to find some illustrations. We're going to say, hey, this is the main passage I want to teach from. What are some parallel passages that might help me add some depth to my message? And it'll give you things like that. And more and more. You can see all of these ministry tools down here are all ways to develop out your message before it's ready to go. So you can talk about commentary summaries on a topic. So literally it'll take, if you're talking about a certain topic, you can go into there and say, which commentary do I want to know what it says about this from? And it will just give you a summary of what that commentary says about it. So it's a huge tool for you if you're getting ready to prep your message. Okay. But once you prep your message, you very often went from having a skeleton to having a rather bloated message. Now we have maybe too much content. Maybe we've got a 40-minute talk. And very often we'll say, write out that message and even teach that message. Like turn your phone on voice memo and record yourself teaching it, and then upload that to the platform. That way it's got your real style, your real words, the way that you go about it. Upload that to the platform, and then let it do some refining. And so there's little things like there's an analyzer called Logic and Flow that will help you understand that maybe the thing that you're saying that makes so much sense to you might not make as much sense to them when they're hearing it. And so here's maybe a way that you might go about adjusting your message so that it sounds more understandable for everybody in the audience. There's another analyzer called this is one of my favorites, called insider versus outsider language. And the general idea is, for a lot of churches, you might say, hey, we're preaching for an unchurched community, or somebody else might say, we're going hard after the Bible, and unchurched, that doesn't matter as much to us. We're just going after it. So you have a certain number. Well, we have a thing on here where it will say if a number one is somebody who was like born in church, and a number 10 is somebody who's never heard of Jesus. When I upload my rough draft, what number would it give me? And if it gives you a 4, but you really want to be more palatable to the outsider who's never heard of these words, you can say, but I want it to be a 7. And then it will go through your message and say, all right, here's all the ways that you should adjust your message so that the outsider would understand what you're talking about. It's super, super helpful that way. So there's things you can do with that and refine your message down so that you can get your message ready to go. Then you're going to present that message. But here's why this little tail on the back end that really is the beginning of the next week for some. Um, it's the beginning of the next week for you as you're working on your next message. But for like people in the discipleship world, much of what we do in that area is based off of yesterday's message. So while I'm thinking about the next week's talk that I've got to go through, some of my team and my volunteers are creating small group material and devotionals and different things like that, and supplies for what they're going to take this next week, because it's all going to be based off of what somebody heard at church on Sunday. And so there's a very consistent flow that goes on where when I'm finished on Sunday, I think I'm done, but my team, whether volunteer or staff, they might just be getting started, right? Because they're living in that discipleship world. Okay, so you want to think about that. In the communication side of life, though, is I've uploaded this outline here. Once I've uploaded a general outline, I can build out a social media plan for what we're going to be talking about this week and have that ready to go as part of my overall social media plan, drawing people into inviting them to come this Sunday. But on the other side of the week, I'm probably going to take clips, like we said earlier, and I'm going to take sections of that message and put that up on social media so people can see what happened yesterday. So again, 9 days, some things that happen before Sunday, some things that happen after Sunday, but all part of that same workflow while things are kind of overlapping and moving forward. We also have an area here that once you've got your sermon pretty ready to go, with the click of a button, we can turn that adult ministry sermon into children's ministry curriculum. And we're going to do that today really quickly so that you can see that people in your church are all learning the same content, just in ways that they have a better chance of learning it. And so depending on their age, they can hear that differently. And so we're going to do that today too. And the goal there would be really simple. We want to foster as many conversations in the church between parents and children as possible. And when you've been in ministry for a long time, you'll realize it's not that parents don't want to have those conversations. It's just that that's a very daunting topic for people to go after, because what if my child asks me a question I don't know the answer to? So our goal is very often to say, all right, let's take the adult ministry sermon from the weekend, let's turn it into children's ministry curriculum so parents and kids are learning the same stuff at the same time. Then let's empower parents by giving them questions they could ask their kids throughout the week about what they learned, knowing that they also learned the same thing in adult church, but now everybody's learning it in a way that they can learn it and they can develop it in their own minds. And so we're trying to empower families to have more conversations about God, and this is a way to do that. And on and on and on. So there's things that we can do, and we're going to hit all of that today. I just tried to go real fast, but this document's really important. And if you're in our Facebook Church.tech Insiders group, you'll see every time we add a new function to this, we just upload a new version of this document to that group. If you're in that group, I think it's one of the most helpful things we do. Sarah on our team, sometimes she'll come across like a common question that's being asked on from people on the customer success side of life, and she'll say, hey, all this has been asked a lot. Here's how I answered it. And she'll sometimes shoot a quick video and show somebody how to fix that problem. And so it's really helpful that way. A lot of times I'll say, hey, training days is coming up. What do you guys want to talk about? And I'll ask people to just jump in there and say, here's some things that we're struggling with. So get on that training days. I'm going to put it in the chat while Josh shows you how he's going to develop out a sermon idea from like that day one in that prep phase to the refine phase. We're going to have Josh, I'm going to have you upload just a general thought that you had. Hey, I would preach on this, and then let's watch it develop itself out. And then while you do that, I'll go ahead and put the link to the Facebook Church.Tech Insiders into the chat.
Sweet. Don, can you also grab the, I was trying to put the doc into the, I was trying to put the 9-day work week doc into the chat here as well, but I couldn't figure it out. So anyhow,
I'll do that. I'll drop that in there.
all right. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'm actually going to start. I thought it would be even more fun to start with the Christmas sermon idea generator.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, let's actually take a real practical look at this. So simple, quick form. So I'm going to use my church, the Foundry. We're a multi-ethnic church in Baltimore with predominantly young families attending. And that's really who we're trying to reach, is the young families around our church community. Sermon vision. This is me just, making this up. I'm not actually preaching the Christmas Eve service, but, Jesus loves us and he's come to bring light into the dark places of our lives. So sermon metaphor, image, light in the dark, church value. So somewhat of a pretty, standard Christmas Eve sermon. Now I'm going to click generate, and it's going to kick us over and give us the outline. And I'll take that, and I'll actually go back to the upload page and use that to begin using some of the other tools that we have baked into the playground. So this will take a couple seconds, but it's a really good example of like, hey, here's how we can get to a point where we've got an outline to start from. We can even take this and use a couple tools to give us alternate outlines. So let's say we don't like this outline, we can actually use some alternate, we can use some tools that'll give us alternate outlines. So here's our outline. And now I'm going to go back. So I've copied all of that, and I'm going to go back over here and go to upload. And I'm going to drop in, paste in my outline.
Now, Josh, just to be clear, it says upload manuscript, but the reason we said manuscript was that we need more than 5 words, right? But it can be an outline. It can be, right? Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that I want to make really, really clear is, for our team, we're very concerned about the ethics of AI being used in the church and the application of AI in the church and how it can be used ethically. So anytime we're giving you something that's going to generate something like an outline for your sermon, you need to understand we're not trying to have AI write your sermon for you. What we're trying to do is put AI in a collaborative seat with you to say, hey, you know what? If I got a couple people who preach in a room and said, hey, everybody kind of outline what you would preach this, for this sermon, and let's put those on screen together and kind of walk through each one. And you might pick a part of this, like, yeah, that works really well. I don't like this. And so for my sermon, I'm going to take point 1. I like that point a lot. I think that's a really insightful thing that really connects with our audience. And I'm going to use that. And I'm going to use the conclusion, because that's a really great idea as well. So we're not trying to have it right for you. We're trying to put you in a creative mode where you stay unstuck and always have this collaborative partner. But I would, like, no one on our team would recommend you take this outline and just preach it, like get up on Sunday and preach whatever comes to you based on this outline. Like, that's not a good thing. Or even just taking it and totally using AI to expand upon it is not a good thing either. So always want to put that disclaimer in there. Anytime we do what might look like we're having AI do the work for you, that's not what we're trying to do. What we're trying to do is help you stay unstuck in the writing process. Now, all right, so I just uploaded this. I want to show you a couple things, and Don, feel free to interject and point me in different directions if I forget stuff. But we're going to jump straight into the playground here in just a second. Once our content has generated, just to make sure we don't end up with a bug or something like that. There we go. Content's generated. So I'm going to click over. So we just generated a small group guide and some discussion questions, summary, that type of thing. But over here in the playground, in the saved prompts, and I'll be honest with you, this is the thing that drives me the craziest, is like, if you're not using these saved prompts, they're not just prompts that you have to save. We've put our expertise into here. We're actually transitioning the saved prompts to say prompt library, where hopefully it communicates a little more clearly. We've tried to say, hey, this is like such a great resource. But at any rate, saved prompts, I'm going to click on children's ministry lesson, because now I know, let's say that outline I actually went through, and that's what I would recommend. This is what I was trying to say earlier. I would recommend going through that outline, making it yours, owning it, really thinking through it, changing it, adding different things, right? So let's say I'd actually done that for the sake of just, how I would actually build this if I were really preaching Christmas Eve. Made it mine. Then I went and uploaded it. So now I know what I'm preaching, and I'm going to go ahead and generate some children's ministry curriculum. So, and let's say it's Monday, right? So now I've got my outline. I feel really good about this. I know I can build this out in a way that's really going to connect with our people. It may change a little bit, but the scripture is going to be what the scripture is, and my main points are going to be what my main points are. And so now I'm in a good position to be able to actually generate children's ministry content for my children's ministry team. If I'm, if you don't have anybody on your staff team, or you don't have a volunteer who's leading children's ministry, and you're going through and doing this, now you can send this to your other volunteers who are actually going to lead children's ministry and have them continue to modify it. Or maybe you're going to modify this a little bit to make sure that it really does work for your context.
Yeah, Josh, I would even say if you don't have a volunteer team, or you don't have a team around you, this is even more helpful to you, because I don't know about you, but if I start writing by myself, the third thing I do sounds an awful lot like the first thing I do. So if I go ahead and have somebody come, or somebody in this context, an AI help is just another seat at the creative table giving me an idea. I can edit that to feel more like me and still feel like I've got something fresh versus having to do it by myself.
100%, 100%. Yeah. So now I can get this to my kids team. Like, let's say you have a staff, they can take this and modify it. Maybe you are the only person on staff, you need to do some modification before you get it to some volunteers, but you're already got kids content, and now your team can go, work on things like getting the activity, like internalizing the message, getting the activity content and everything ready, all of that, right? So now we have an aligned teaching calendar for for Christmas Eve. Like, kids are going to be going through the same thing. Maybe you have all of your kids in the service with you. And that's where I would say go back to those ministry tools and do the object lesson with the outline that we just created, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, absolutely.
now you can go back over here and you can do your object lesson. And again, the object lesson thing, I think we actually have another ministry tool that's kind of like that, isn't it? Isn't there, Don? Maybe not.
I don't know.
We
I know
made
I
it
wanted it for
I can't.
Christmas. We
Yeah.
can
So
very quickly though.
yeah, we could. Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, we're talking about Christmas Eve, but you could do this every single week, right? So,
Absolutely right.
okay.
Yeah,
Now,
Josh, one of the things I'd love for you to do with this is like, so you got your outline right, but now let's put some meat on the bones. Let's add an illustration or two. Let's think about, like, I mean, sometimes it's like I just don't know another story to tell, right?
yep, absolutely. So, okay, so here's the thing. Once you've created that content for the children's thing, it lives over here. This is something that I've been wanting to point out to people. You can create a new conversation. We've had a few people that have just been using one conversation
Yeah,
for
that's right.
every single thing, and they're running out of context. And that's really just like, AI has fantastic memory, but it does have capacity limits on it. So if you run out of context where it just won't produce anything more, just start a new conversation. Give it a little bit of context. If you're still working on the same problem or whatever, give it a little bit of context from what you were working on. But at the foundation, inside the playground, when you're in the playground, whatever you uploaded is the foundational content that it's drawing
That's
from,
right.
no matter what. So it's
That's right.
still my outline that I uploaded, even though I started a new conversation. So save prompts. And now we're going to put some meat on the bone. So let's think about illustrations. Let's see
There you
here.
go. All the way at the bottom. There you go.
Yeah, sermon writing illustration ideas. So I'm going to have it generate some ideas for me on illustrations. And again, it's easy to think, oh, it didn't come up with like one that I love with all of my heart and want to move forward with, right? Like, so if let's say what it comes up with here, we're like, I don't really love any of these. It'd be easy to be like, it didn't work. But here's the thing. I can just say, no, I don't like any of these. And rather than offending my intern, who I asked to give me 10 potential illustrations for Christmas service, I can tell AI, I don't have to figure out how to say it nicely. I can just say, I don't like any of these.
Matter of fact, you've said to me in the past that you feel like AI responds better if you don't say it nicely.
It does respond better to either like overt directness or flattery. Oddly enough, like it's got enough, I mean, it's based on ingesting a whole bunch of human writing, right? So like it's going to actually do better when you are either very direct and almost mean, or when you flatter it a little bit. Like, great job. You didn't actually do what I wanted you to do, but now I want you to think real hard, take a breath, and actually like do it again, So okay, so here's 10 new ones, right? So I think all of these are completely unique. Yep, looks like it.
Yep, they sure are. Yep.
Yeah, they're all unique. So I've got 10 new ones. And let's say, you know what? Let's see. Let's actually look
I
at
want to
them.
do it like this. I want to do it like this. I want to do it like this. Hey, somebody in the chat who's looking at these, is there any of one of them that like just type in one that you think would be cool? If you don't in 5 seconds, I'm just gonna pick one, but I thought it'd be fun. All right, we're gonna go with the founder of Tom's Shoes because I've not seen that yet. So go down to business and do Tom's Shoes.
Uh,
There you go, number 7.
oh yeah. Okay, so now I'm going to say, okay, I love number 7. I want you to build that out as my opening illustration. USTRATION. I don't know why I put a period. You don't have to punctuate, and you don't even have to spell things correctly, just so you know. Okay.
It's
So
very, very good for me.
now it's taking Blake Mikowski's story and it is building out. And this is the beautiful part, right? Like, it's building out how you could use this illustration as your opening to your actual sermon. And like, again, I would really, really strongly encourage you not to just copy paste this and say, okay, like, here's my opening. You're going to go through this and go, there's part of this that I don't like. Or you could even use AI to say, you know what, like, I want this to tie into my scripture even more strongly. Not good grammar, but you know what I mean, right? And now we're having it go back through and think more clearly about our main text and really pulling in, like, we're going to tie this even more clearly to that. And then let's say I'm like, yep, good, this is good.
Hey Josh, wait, do one thing real quick. Before you copy it, write back and say, hey, this is better, but I only have 90 seconds to tell this story. And we're gonna have it rewrite it with about 90 seconds in mind. So it'll shorten it, but still keep your story right.
Yep. Boom.
Okay, there you go.
All right, so now we've got our opening illustration. And again, this is not what we're going to say. This is just a, beginning point for us to build it out. So I can copy that. I can also click this copy button, drop it into my doc. But let's do this. Let's say that outline that we started with, that document. And this is one thing that I've never really even said to anybody, but it's how I actually use the tools. And so I'm gonna click on this real quick and go back to ministry tools. So what I do when I'm writing is I will go to I'll go back to that outline document, right? So like, here's my outline document that we started with. We generated it from, and it's on a page, right? So now what I'm going to do is I've got my outline here and I'm just going to move this down. I'm going to change off of heading 1.
Good idea.
And I'm going to paste in my opening, right? So here's my opening. I obviously don't need this. And this is where I'll actually write my sermon. And here's why I'm using a page to write my sermon, or even let's call it sermon draft, right? So and I can come up here and change this to Christmas sermon draft, right? So now I'm going to use this. And if I've got AI tools in here that I can use. So let's say I'm like, you know what? I really want this section to be longer. And I want to, let's say I actually think that it's not quite long enough. And I want to have some more content to kind of edit down and or think about this. So I can insert this in, or I can just replace it. I'm just going to replace it. So now I can go through and go, oh, this is a lot, but I can actually pull out what I don't need from this in order to, and I can rewrite it or, whatever, right? So now I'm actually using this doc right here as the repository for everything with what I started with. Now, here's the benefit of this. I can then re-upload, like, let's say I get my outline and the first few points pretty well fleshed out, and I can re-upload it by taking this document and just copy pasting it in the same way we did before. I can practice my sermon and record it as an audio file and upload it that way. And now I've got I'm a lot further along, right, on my actual content that is in the playground that I'm playing with. So I usually have two Church.tech windows open at the same time. One is the doc that I'm actually working on to write everything out. And then one
That's
is
really helpful.
where I'm messing around in the playground. And this is something
No,
that
I didn't even know this. This is really great. Keep going.
yeah, this is something I ran into this past week talking to a pastor who was like, man, I just feel like I have to keep re-uploading all these different pages. And I'm like, well, just have one page you're working from, create your content on a different tab and dump it into the page on another tab. And so anyhow, this is something that we've not done a good job of, like, walking through how we're thinking about using the platform. And yeah, so if you have tips on how you're using it, or you've got a better idea on how to use it, we are all ears, by the way. We really are trying to make this a community where we actually engage together on how to use the platform more effectively. So if you have ideas that we need to share with everybody, please let us know. But
yeah, and that Facebook, the Facebook Insiders, the Church.tech Insiders group on Facebook is a great way to do that. 4 of you just joined, so thanks for getting on there. Also, the 9-day work week, I went ahead and re-uploaded that to the very beginning, the very top of the Facebook Insiders page. So if you're in there, you can see that you can download that document right there and have that for you.
yep. There's a lot of optimization that's coming with V2 on this as well, where you will be able to push content to pages from the playground. Like, you're not going to have to replicate a lot of pages. We do know that that's a thing that people are wanting, where it's not just like, oh, I've made like 1,000 pages for every sermon that I write, or whatever. So anyhow, there's some really cool stuff coming on that front. And that's coming in the next month or so. We're launching in January, so that's going to be really good. All right, here we go.
Josh, I want to, because we're running, I want to keep us on our clock, and we could go for hours. But we won't, because we love you all. So we got 17 more minutes left. One thing I want to do, just to kind of speed this up, is if you have questions about Josh's workflow of starting with kind of a general skeleton and adding some meat on that bones, and then finding a way to use that and make children's ministry curriculum out of that, or different things like that. If you got questions, hold on. I really want to try to get to some Q&A today, which means you'll unmute, you'll ask the question. But before we do that, let me show you, Josh, let me go ahead and I'll share my screen for a second. Let me show you what can happen in that refine phase, okay? Because the refine phase is the next kind of step in this process. I'm gonna try to share my screen. Sorry, there's a lot of things on there. Can you all see this? I think you can. Okay. I'm just gonna go ahead and take one of the most recent uploads here from 11/22. And let's just say that this message, now let's just say that Jovi preached this like 2 weeks ago, but let's just say that this was his rough draft that he was in there. Well, if you go back into the playground, now that you've got a full message, you can go in here and you can run some more, like what we would call refine tools. Okay. We'll go in here and we'll say, let's do that logic and flow tool. So you can come in here and just hit logic and flow. What it's going to do is it's going to read through your message and tell you, it's like an encouragement sandwich. Always love that, right? It's really helpful. It says, hey, you did a really good job with this. Here's some things I might change, but you did a really good job, right? So it's very it's affirming for when you want to know if you did a good job. But and so like you'll notice right here, here's the, the summary was uh it was good, but here's a potential improvement. Here's a potential improvement. Here's a potential improvement. Recently, I was with a friend of mine who preaches at a rather large church, and we were at a meeting that wasn't even related to him preaching. I just said, "Hey, are you preaching this weekend?" He said, "I am." I said, "Hey, send me your message real quick." And I ran him through this and sent him the feedback, and he was like, "Man, this changed everything." He was like, "It was uncanny." He said, "I felt like it took my message that was solid and made it really helpful, really good." And so now they have a rule at their church because it's a teaching team, that they have to run everything through Logic and Flow just to get the feedback. Even if they don't use it, it's always really helpful to have that feedback. And so you'll just notice, like in here, emphasize the call to action, strengthen the connection between person and application. You'll notice it explains what it's saying and then gives you an example of how you might change that to make it work better when you're communicating that to other people. So it's just a really helpful way of saying, oh, these kinds of things will be helpful. Another one that you can come into is you can go in and do the insider versus outsider language, which is also really helpful. Like for instance, let's talk about Christmas. At Christmas time, you have a far better chance of having a heavy outsider crowd at your church. If you start using a lot of insider language, there's a good chance that you've just made all those people feel like they don't fit here. That doesn't mean you don't want to talk about certain things. Doesn't mean you don't want to talk about scripture. Of course you do. You just want to talk about it in a way that they'll understand it. And so, for instance, one of the things that often comes up with for people when they run this is you can't just say Paul writes in Romans because they don't know who Paul is. So you might need to say Paul, who's an apostle of Jesus, but kind of give a little bit of an idea. So in this situation here, we're going to run through and it's going to have read through the message. It's going to grade it. Remember, 1 is I'm an insider. I've been in church my whole life. And 10 is I don't even know who Jesus is. Okay, so it's going to give this one a 5, right in the middle. Well, let's just say you wanted to have it be a 7 because you feel like we might have a better chance of outsiders coming and people have never heard of Jesus coming here. So you'll hit 7, and it will just give you some really practical ways for you to simplify your message, for you to take your message. We don't want to take away any of the ways that this message was, God gave you this message that you worked on together, the takeaways. We don't want to take away from any of that, but what we want to do is make it more palatable for everybody in the room to understand it. So it'll give you things like clarify your biblical references. And so when referencing scripture, briefly explain the context or significance of this passage. For example, discussing Peter's denial, explain why this is significant to the context of relationship with Jesus. It's just things like that. Again, it's a seat at the creative table. You don't have to take all of its feedback, but you certainly want all the feedback that you can get. And as I've walked through with a bunch of pastors, in this moment, I had one guy say to me, I love this because my wife always gives me feedback. And if I don't do all of her feedback, she gets mad at me. Well, church.tech's not going to get mad at you. Okay. So it's going to give you feedback and you can do with it what you want, but you want the feedback. Okay. That's the key, right? So you want to do that. So this is that refine phase. There's tools in here that are made specifically for this. Another one that I won't run it, but another one that I love is when you're doing sermon writing, application across a ministry spectrum. So you've got people in your room that are thinking about Jesus who forever. I mean, we're fully devoted followers, we're all in. And then you've got it all the way down to people that are skeptics about this. Well, how are they going to hear this message? And what application step could you give them to make this message take root in their heart this week? What is a thing they could do differently because of it? Well, it's just going to give you a list of try this with this group, with this group. And it's there just to help you think through, hey, I haven't tried that before. That's a good idea. So another idea generator. And you'll see from here, there's ones we could never possibly get to. You can have it do all your sermon slides for you. Click a button after your message is ready, and it will recommend about 10 to 12 sermon slides that would be really helpful that you can then grab, put them in a page, send that page on to the people that are making your slides, and off you go, ready to go. So there's all kinds of stuff in here that you want to use to refine that down. Okay. So that's one of the things that I wanted you to look at there. Now we have 11 minutes left, and I wanted to spend some time both going through one potential upgrade that we're talking about, Josh. I know you wanted to let him know about something that's coming, and so I want to give room for that. But before any of that, I wanted to go ahead and see, do we have any questions? I mean, I know you're probably in the chat, but go ahead and unmute if you've got any questions, and ask away. We'd love to answer if we can, and we won't hold this for too long. But if you've got anything that you want to talk about, hey, can you go back over this again? I've got a question about this.
I
Let
have
me
a
know.
question. This is Dan.
Dan, I know. Dan, I have to ask you in front of all these people. Were you on the Carrie Newhoff webinar?
Yes, I
I saw
was.
your 9 day I saw what you did with that. That was somebody said, how often do you use AI, Josh? And Dan, were you the one that wrote in and said, I use it 9 days a week?
No, I didn't say that, but I did
Oh, you
say,
didn't say it?
Oh
no, I
man.
Somebody
didn't say
said that,
that.
and I was like, I know what's
Yes,
going on.
yeah, I saw that too. No, I do have a question in regards to what Josh had shared at Carrie's. Um, when you did the 5 day devotional prompt, I do that for my church for my message and post it Monday through Friday. How did you get more of a filled out devotional to do that? I mean, mine is just kind of a skeleton. It's just really short. How do you get more robust, I guess?
Okay, so you're saying you want the devotional thought to just have more meat on the, like, I want to take it a little
Right,
further.
right. So I know that the prompt that is supplied in the playground is probably, that's what I use. So I need to elaborate on that prompt a little bit more.
Hmm.
Okay.
So is it our prompt or is it one that you
No,
created?
I think it was your prompt. It was a save. Well, no, maybe it was my prompt
No,
too, but I
it's
just
probably the one
saved.
that you use in Pages. If you go into Pages and hit create new, and then one of the buttons is 5 day devotional. Is that right?
Yeah, 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 I think so. Yeah. It's under playground and then it's in those, you have four boxes in the playground, or it's not playground.
Oh,
It's that.
Yeah. So what I would recommend doing is going into the page, highlighting the text and using the AI tool on the page that says continue writing. Um,
Oh,
um, that's a tool that will expand on it. And then if that doesn't give you the kind of output that you're really looking for and you want more control over it, what I would do is actually copy paste all of that page. We're working on some stuff like it's going to be a little bit longer before we get this in there, but we're working on some stuff where the playground actually lives on the page. So you'll be able
okay.
to reference everything on the page and directly use AI to prompt it to do things with the text on the page. But what I would do is I would copy paste all of that, all 5 days, or even just one day at a time, into the playground and then use it. Use the playground to directly interact with that text. Does that make sense?
let me go ahead and for those
Yep.
of you who are just looking in, one of the things that I think might be able for you to see is when you come into here from the beginning, there'll be nothing on here. All these were things that were made. The area that's called Pages is basically your repository of everything you've worked on from that week's message. Okay,
Right.
so know that that's there. Inside there, you can hit create new page, and immediately you can create a 5 day devotional, and it will put one
Right.
together. When you do that, I'll just pull one up because I know we did one. So this is the 5 day devotional for the message that that was uploaded here. Josh, what I'm hearing you say is our typical layout is scripture, devotion, reflection, and prayer, like those kind of four parts every day. But Dan, if I understand correctly, you're saying you want this devotion to just have more to it. Is that right?
Yeah. Right. Correct.
Okay. So then, Josh, what I hear you saying is going to the AI, our AI tools baked in, you can just hit AI generate and continue writing. Is that what you're saying?
Yep. Yeah,
And
go
then
ahead and do that.
it'll take that devotional thought, but it'll give you more.
Okay. That's what I needed to
Okay.
know.
Yeah. And then when you do that, and it should happen any second now, um, there we go. Now we've got more, and I'm just
Yep.
going to replace it.
Yep.
Now we've
Perfect.
got a lot. Okay. Now you
Perfect.
might go, whoa, that's too much. That's okay. Now you get to edit it down and
Right. Right.
simplify
And
it.
that's great. That's great. That's what I was looking for. Exactly.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's
Awesome.
great. Sure. Anybody else got any questions like that?
David, I'm looking at your questions about the prompts centering on individual scriptures as opposed to a passage of scripture. The I'm trying to make sure I understand your question here. How would you word a prompt to draw from Bible story from within the sermon as opposed to a random scripture reference in the sermon? I would just prompt it specifically like that. Just say like, I want you to draw from the story of David and Goliath. So sometimes you just have to get a little bit more like specific in the way that you tell it, like interact with this directly. Would be my general answer to that, if I'm understanding you correctly. And then between two devotions for the same prompt. So every time you generate something with AI, you're generating a unique response. It's not looking at your request and the content it's pulling from and saying, here's the only response. It's looking at the content that you're pulling from and your request and saying, here's a response, just like a human would. Like we would never say the same thing perfectly the exact same way if you just straight up asked us a question. And so that sounds really bad. I don't mean that it is human. I just mean it's designed in a way to feel very human. So it's going to give you different responses every single time. Our responses from our AI systems are going to be roughly like, they're going to be similar because we have our creativity kind of dialed back a little bit, and some of that has to do with our system prompts and how we actually control the outputs and make sure that you're getting good outputs from this that would be helpful to you. But yeah, always happy to talk more about that.
I want to do two things real quick, Josh. Peach asked if we can explain the content section a bit more. So would you share that?
Yeah, Peach, the contents, the thing that I would tell you about the content section is it's about to get a lot better in YouTube. So there's a couple things to know. If you are creating pages directly from a sermon, so if you're using a template or if you're saving it from or generating a page from the playground, then those will live here. This is a little bit of like a spoiler here.
That was my lead into that.
And then ministry tool pages would be any pages that you're generating from ministry tools. So that's how it's going to break down that way. Other pages, we don't really have anything that fits into that category yet, but that is coming here soon. And then the thing that I would say is you have your pages and then you have shared with your organization pages. So if there are pages that have been created by other people within the organization who have set the sharing to be able to be seen by everybody in the organization, then when you click on this, you're looking at the whole organization rather than just your pages. And the thing that I would say is like using the search bar here is probably the easiest way if you've created a lot of pages to be able to get to your content more quickly. But in V2, I know we keep referencing V2 and saying it's coming, and I promise you, it really is coming in January. And we have, the reason it's been delayed is the level of sophistication of V2 is wildly beyond V1, and it is far more robust than V1 and just way more intuitive. And so, what's that old saying, Don? Like simplicity always comes on the far side of complexity. Like you have to wade through the complexity to get to a more simple thing. V2 is right. So much more intuitive, so much easier to use. And this is one of the things that's going to be better. So,
well, why don't you talk about really quickly, if you will, give everybody who hung out for the long time. I know it's 12:59, but if you can, in 6 minutes, we'll hold you for 5 minutes over. Give them a feel for what's one part of V2, which is what you just saw in there, Church.tech AI. Yeah. Talk about the benefits of it, the differences of it. Let's go.
This may actually come out before January, and so if you're a beta tester, you may be getting access to this pretty soon here. And what this is it is access to AI from within our platform, not attached to a sermon. So it is, you know, like if you were going to ChatGPT or going to Claude or something like that, you are getting access to AI. It has the ability to browse the web. It has some really cool capability that we're rolling out progressively on it. But to start with, it's direct access to AI with our guardrails on it. And then the beautiful thing is you have the ability to choose some denominational guardrails. And one of the things that we're rolling out is you'll have the ability to turn on certain guardrails for your team. So if you have like multiple people on your team, you'll be able to do this. I will tell you this is going to be an additional charge because this does have a whole lot of extra functionality baked into it. So it's going to be $17 a month. We're going to give all of our current users a month for free to play with it and use it and see the functionality and how it works and everything. But if you were going to go get a ChatGPT Teams account for your church, for yourself, that would be it's literally $8 cheaper than ChatGPT, and I think it's like $12 cheaper than a Claude account would be, and probably right around the same for Perplexity as well. So like,
Josh, would you explain guardrails to people so they understand what we mean by that?
Yeah, so the guardrails, we have our system architecture and prompting that guides how this actually functionally works. You'll be able to add your theological distinctives into this and control it using those theological distinctives, and it will literally, like, let's say you're Baptist, it's going to say, you know, you can have it create an output from a question that you asked it, and it will identify, hey, this part of my output is not consistent with the traditional Baptist doctrine, or whatever it is, right? So it'll actually identify areas that are out of alignment with your doctrine and point those out to you. We'll eventually give you the ability to turn off like responses that would be inconsistent with your specific church doctrine, that type of thing. And so that's some of the guardrails, and we're continually improving those guardrails. We've already got alpha testers using it and telling us the things that they want, and we're building some more controls in that will come out progressively, and so you'll have the ability to play with those. The coolest thing about, well, one, this is just going to get better and better and better, just so we are clear. But the coolest thing about what we're actually launching with is everything you've ever uploaded to the platform. We've been running a system called embeddings on it. And so we've vectorized everything in the platform. And so you'll be able to reference every single thing you've ever uploaded to the platform from within here and find it. So if you're like, man, what did I preach on last Easter? You could just say, what did I preach on last Easter? And it'll bring it up. Or you can say, what sermons, whoops, I'm typing into the chat. What sermons have I preached from the book of John? And it's going to pull up those sermons. Again, this is still in alpha right now, so there's some optimization that we're working on before we put it in the platform. But here's the sermons that reference John, and you'll be able to click straight into them and go straight to. And then we also provide suggested responses. So it'll say, hey, can you provide a summary of each of these sermons? And it'll go through and create a summary from each of the sermons and generate. It's a little slow right now because we've got to optimize some things about how it actually functionally works. But when we roll it out for beta testing, it should be faster, and it should also be just anyhow, like it's going to create all kinds of optimization for churches and in a safe environment. Like, our goal is to be your trusted partner and to provide safe AI that behaves ethically. Like if you ask this thing to write a sermon for you, it's not going to, you know, that type of thing. So anyhow, that's it. That's like the announcement for today. This is going to be really fun. Yeah, really grateful for all of you showing up today.
And to be clear, this is in alpha testing right now. We've walked through different people that want to be a part of that are okay with the fact that it's going to be buggy and it's going to have some issues with it and stuff. That's okay. We are asking for regular feedback from them. If any of you all are going, "Man, I'm that person," but the thing is, you have to use it or it's not helpful for us. We need feedback from people that say they want to alpha test. So there's some people that say, "Yeah, I'll do it," but then we're going, we need you to use this thing a lot so that you can tell us what's working, what's not working, what would be better, on and on and on. But let us know if you're one of those people, and we'll put you in a list of people that we think through. There's kind of an alpha group that's willing to deal with a whole lot of bugs. There's a beta group that's willing to deal with some bugs, you know, along the way that are kind of as we're getting this thing out to ready to go. And we'll be doing that with a bunch of other things as well as V2 as that's coming up. So everybody, it's 1:05. I kept you for 5 extra minutes, and I'm sorry about that, but wanted you to see a little bit of what's happening, a bit of a Christmas gift, if you will. If you've got any questions, hit us up. You know where that green bubble is, and you know that we will answer. If you've got any, you also have Josh at church.tech, Don at church.tech, Sarah at church.tech. We'd love to answer your questions that way as well. Merry Christmas. We will not see you until 2025 on training days, but we're around if you need us. Thanks. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.